This time, the Death Star is in range now. Death Star. All right. That's great. Come on in, everybody. Keep coming in. You're the expert. We're going to try to get started here. We got a rowdy group of panelists up here today, and I'm going to let them introduce themselves. I'm Todd. I don't know, did anybody go to the Mr. Star Wars thing last night? Anybody? Yeah, a few? Well, I'm the crusty old man, by the way, so that was me. So just so you know, I'm out of mask today. I think I got gypped. I think I had second, but that was me. But anyway, we're here to have fun today, maybe learn a little bit, and we got a special surprise at the end, maybe, and we're going to talk about. But let the panelists go ahead and introduce themselves, and we'll go down through there.
Oh, me first, okay.
Yeah.
Hi, I'm Scott Gardner. I'm the co-host of the Two True Freaks podcast, where on the first Monday of every month we talk Star Wars, and we specifically cover the Clone Wars series. We're experts in air quotes because we do it very much off the cuff with not a lot of research or anything. We just kind of watch the show and then breeze through it. So.
I'm Chris Honeywell. I'm his co-host, and yeah, we're not big Wikipedia. You know, I can tell you who the second associate producer of Clone Wars is, but we've been there since 1977. We're ready to talk Star Wars, and we can talk Star Wars. This is a 3-hour panel, right?
No. They told me to watch these two guys. All right, everyone over here, am I right?
I'm Glenn Stein. I'm a contributor to Republic Forces Radio Network.
Awesome.
I'm just a fan.
I'm Anthony Foister. I'm the founder of the international costuming organization, the Jedi Assembly. And last year I was named the most obsessed Star Wars fan by Chronicle Books.
All right. Who's the second associate producer of Clone Wars?
But I'm like these guys. I'm just a fan. You know, my knowledge is limited, but true fan since '77.
Yeah, that's the whole thing. Everybody on this panel is just like you guys, so y'all may know more than some of these guys.
Absolutely.
So this is we're going to try to bounce it back and forth too, tell what you don't like, what you do like, and all that. But I guess we can let these guys kind of give an overview, or you want to start with a question? How y'all guys want to handle it?
I would like to know if anyone in the room has vegetables to throw.
No. All right, security.
All right.
Hey, move these guys to the back.
Take a question.
Okay. Anybody got a question that maybe one of these guys can answer? Question.
Meaning of life.
Meaning of life. No, wrong.
42.
That's not about
Crossing the streams.
Speaking of crossing the streams, I just want to mention the fella in the Star Trek shirt back here. This is awesome, man. I'm not calling you out. I'm just saying this is great because this is something we talk about and preach about on our shows about
Two worlds
getting along and coming together. It's awesome.
Right.
My question is basically, when is the first season of Clone Wars coming out on DVD?
I think it's November. First Tuesday in November.
Yeah. November 3rd is what we're told, which is my birthday, so happy birthday, man. Yeah. Yes, exactly.
11.
Anybody else? We got a question back in the back.
What's coming up with the Clone Wars? I have no idea. I'm kind of out of the loop. I haven't had internet access for about 2 months.
Ooh, boy. We have a 3-hour show to catch you up.
Sending him to triage.
We need to get him. Have you seen one of the flyers, The Rise of the Bounty Hunters? You have one. Okay, good. But what do you guys?
October 2nd, it starts, according to this.
I went to Star Wars weekends. Anybody ever been to Star Wars weekends here? Oh, awesome. And they had there was the Clone Wars TV thing, and Ahsoka was there, and Obi-Wan was there, and they showed a trailer, but they specifically asked you, please do not film this trailer or whatever. So I'll tell you what I remember, which is Obi-Wan is getting a girlfriend, and that looks very cool.
I think that's sort of they're making it look like that. I think they're, and especially have Anakin's quote where he specifically says that. But I think that's a girl that Obi-Wan has met before. I'm not sure if this is the person that was mentioned in the book.
It may have come out of the Dubois book, because he did have a girlfriend at one point at one of those.
Right. He had a past relationship a very long time ago, and he was very, I guess, separated. But, unlike Anakin, who is not into that.
The scene they show is very funny, where they show several scenes of Obi-Wan and her talking, and you can tell that there's a definite sexual tension between them and something, there's sparks flying and all. No kissy scenes or anything like that, but then at one point there's a big action scene and Obi-Wan says, I'll go do this, you go save your girlfriend, and he goes, okay, and he starts running, he goes, oh, Anakin, wait! And he turns around and it's just a totally hilarious scene, so it's really going to be played up, and that looks very funny.
Anybody else a question?
I don't know if I don't actually read any of the extended universe, so is the episode in last season, is that the first time that Cad Bane has ever been seen?
To my knowledge.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. To my knowledge. I just got caught up for the show, I'm reading through the extended universe, and I'm up through, at this point, through Revenge of the Sith, and I'm working on Order 66. I'm trying to get up to speed as quickly as possible, and I'm finding that I'm really having to keep my very anal retentive, I want everything to fit in nice little sequences in check, because I'm finding that the Clone Wars stuff doesn't quite fit the way that a lot of the other later, the original trilogy stuff does seem to nicely fit.
Boy, he led me into that one, didn't he? Yeah, hey, who has complaints about with the Clone Wars? If there's anything that's off-centered, anything like that, does anybody have? Here we go.
All right, so I went to the movie theater, and I was like, this is going to be the best thing ever. And I almost walked out, because, in one of the scenes, they have Anakin flying by Ahsoka or something like that, and they're 20 feet away from each other, and he can't find her. I'm like, and you're telling me you can't feel her? What? I raged so hard over that for about a month. I was like, this is retarded. But
the questioner is answered.
Here's his question. There was a scene in the movie where Anakin and Ahsoka flew by each other about 20 feet away, and Anakin didn't see her, and
couldn't feel her.
You would think a Jedi would be able to sense her, or at least be aware of where all his fellow Jedis are in the.
Or when Dooku cuts the backpack that's supposed to have the Jabba Hutt's son in it, and he thinks he killed us, no, he would know if there's something in there. He'd know it's a pile of rocks.
Right, correct. Yeah, well, there's that willing suspension of disbelief.
But then yet I still watch it, so.
Yeah. Disbelief is that he would be able to.
Yes.
Road to the Hutt was there.
Well, another thing, you're talking about the Clone Wars movie, that just completely, I was like, what the heck is this? Is the Truman Capote Jabba the Hutt's uncle? Zero the Hutt.
I think that's annoying, but at least it's consistent with George Lucas as of late. There has to be at least one character that everybody's going to absolutely hate. I think he's doing it on purpose, actually. I think.
And he's grown on me since then, so.
Yes, sir, right here in front.
Do you feel that the characters in the Clone Wars are really filling in the gap? To give you an example, do you feel that they're actually taking Anakin a little further down the dark path as opposed to, the sudden jump from light side to dark side?
Did y'all hear that?
Yes.
Okay, y'all heard it, the question? He's basically asking, are the characters that are in the show actually pulling him to dark or light side? So
I don't think they're doing enough.
Yeah, I think they just take little baby steps with it seems.
And then the follow-up, do you think it would benefit the character and the canon line to kill off Ahsoka Tano?
Oh, yes.
Absolutely.
Well, eventually she's going to be killed if unless somehow she escaped like Obi-Wan.
Not killing her is a major cop-out.
Yeah. She just say, well, my daughter's favorite character is Ahsoka Tano.
Well, lots of people have their favorite character, and their favorite character dies. Like, you've seen the Harry Potter, Dumbledore died.
Oh my God.
And if you don't know, too bad.
In the back of the room? Yes, sir.
And Kit Fisto died too,
He's definitely less whiny.
Anakin's less whiny now.
He's a better actor.
He's drawn better.
Well, to go back to your point about Anakin being dark, I cannot remember for the life of me who it was I saw recently in an interview saying they're specifically staying away from that. They're very much approaching this as good Anakin Skywalker. So we may see little teases, and I just rewatched the series before this, and there was one episode where he said a complete Darth Vader line, but in a different tone. So it was a nice little aside. You can see he's headed there, and we all know it. So they're not really going to play to that as much as they did with the prequel movies. This is very much, this generation's Luke Skywalker. So it makes, I think, when you watch this, and he's very heroic, and then you go back and you rewatch Revenge of the Sith, every time you do that, it makes that transition that more jarring and that more like, oh, don't do it. You know what I mean?
I've found this show sort of walking a fine line with being for adults and for kids. It's on it's animated, it's on the Cartoon Network, yet it's at night, and characters die in it. There's clone troopers dying, and in the prequel trilogies, troopers would get mowed down by the thousands, but they didn't really establish many of them as characters. And in this one, they're really sort of establishing that the clone troopers do have their individual personalities and haircuts. And there's even one point where there's a rogue clone trooper who actually is evil and turns against them, which I thought was very interesting because I thought they were sort of hardwired to follow orders, and I thought that was a very interesting thing.
Which is kind of an interesting episode until you think about how did this clone trooper get contacted by Asajj Ventress? How did she sort of infiltrate and sort of, get a, how did she get her like 5 minutes to convince him to become, a traitor and stuff? I mean, there's no intro into how she, was he out on a single mission and he got isolated and they found him or something, sort of one of those sort of like little alien things, where somebody goes off by themselves and they come back and they're like, oh, fine, nothing happened. Yeah, they have like, a face like inside. But in the show, it's like, oh, made a good story, but if you think about it, how did that happen? How could that have happened? And I think that a lot of the issues that a lot of people like me have with the show is that on an individual episode, each individual episode works within that sort of 22 minutes. But those 22 minutes really don't work. The 5 minutes before those 22 minutes and maybe the 5 minutes after those 20 minutes don't really work. And they really don't work in the whole big scheme of Star Wars.
I like sort of having some of that stuff vague so that we have stuff to sit around and talk about, like, maybe a clone trooper, since they're programmed, they can be reprogrammed a little easier.
Right, we'll keep moving. We got another question right here from this young gentleman.
There's a different series of Clone Wars. There's 2 of them. There used to be 2 of them that were different. With the first one was Asajj Ventress, where Anakin kills her, and where the second one, where did they get it from how Palpatine was locked up in Revenge of the Sith from that second Clone Wars cartoon?
Those Clone Wars cartoons never happened. I believe that's the official. That's sort of the official opinion now, is that those didn't happen. They were sort of a child's perspective of what may have happened.
Where'd you hear that?
Yeah.
Other places.
I've heard a similar thing to what Lynn's saying, that it was actually supposedly non-canon, even though it leads up to episode 3 at the very end of the micro-series.
Because the micro-series conflicted with Labyrinth of Evil.
There was some conflicting. But did you enjoy the micro-series?
Yeah, they were good.
So I thought it was a little darker,
I think the key is it seems like George is trying to bring in the next generation, and they're not thinking about it. They're enjoying the cartoon. Right. So at this point, we'll just keep moving on. We've got another question?
Do you question the level of canon of the current Clone Wars? Because I know it's T-level canon, but it just doesn't seem like it has several seasons actually fits between the time frame of episode 2 and 3. And things like, does Ahsoka actually exist in the whole Star Wars scene? It's just, do you question the level of canon?
Well, in episode 2, where Obi-Wan talks to Yoda in front of the younglings, there is the same species as Ahsoka in part of the younglings. So she could could exist in canon?
The question is, what is canon?
Canon is anything that was on film or in print with the Lucasfilm logo on it. That's my stance on it, and it offends me personally that George has tried to back off on a lot of that stuff. Who here remembers the Star Wars holiday special? When it aired? It never happened. I don't care what George says. I was in front of the television set in 1978. It happened.
I wish it didn't. I have one of the old VCRs, the monster ones. That tape, what popped up. And I waited the whole damn day for that show to come on and to tape it. So it did.
Sure, the gentleman in blue.
Yeah.
Lost your question?
Did you pressure him to make it maybe 45 minutes to an hour?
We don't know. Yeah, I wish we had that control. But we're just the fans like you. We'd make it 2 hours, I mean,
I agree that I think that they would do better to have two-part episodes and not single arc, or not two story arc, two episode arcs. Have a two-part episode. They need to do that.
Yeah, instead of it ended, it looks like an 18 episode.
No, they do arcs that are single episodes that are like the Ryloth trilogy with 3 episodes, and those were very closely connected. But like the Dooku Captured and the one after that, there wasn't. It ended. They had sort of escaped. They got away. The Malevolence ones, the droid ones.
Yeah.
They're connected, but they don't really end with like a cliffhanger. Each episode would work on its own. The Blue Shadow Virus is the big one. It sort of ends, and then you have the Mystery of 1,000 Moons, which you could have not even had that episode at all. The Mystery of 1,000 Moons. You would have had a closed story in the first episode. So I did like seeing the Angel of Viego.
Yes, sir. Right here. Use it.
Speaking of like the kind of reconciliation of things, the Star Wars Dark Horse comic line Republic was also basically took the years of the Clone Wars and kind of did all that and had the transition. And it's kind of interesting to see in the cartoon that they draw from stuff, but they also don't always match up. Like how Anakin gets a scar. I guess in the micro series there, it was Ventress that gave it to him, but in a totally different way than they got it in the comics. They actually bought her in the comics on Coruscant, and he dropped her off. And the comics actually went through a great effort to have him be a hero, but also to have these choices where you could see him making hard decisions, which was also being behind the scenes manipulated by Palpatine. They put him in situations where he'd be forced to make these hard decisions, so he was just getting in the nature of making these. And that, I think, is what we're not seeing in the Clone Wars cartoon as so much as the Palpatine forcing Anakin to make tough choices. And it is not one choice that's making him dark, but it's it's just the series of steps, where he's bearing all this responsibility. Everyone is like turning to him as like, you are just this awesome guy, you can carry us through this, and he's got to make tough choices. And so, what do you guys feel about, or are you guys even familiar with that Dark Horse comic line, which I thought was actually very well done. It's probably one of the better Star Wars comic lines that have ever been done. And they introduced a lot of the Jedi, and they kind of introduced a slew of more of the back history and the kind of the underbelly of the kind of the universe as a whole that was going on.
Well, I think with the comics, a lot of times the comics are not aimed as much as at the wide pop culture as comics readers, and the comics readers who are reading Star Wars comics are the ones we know a lot about it, and we're really looking for a serious story. So I think the comics are a lot of times more serious, more actually better focused and better plotted out than, say, a TV show. But a TV show has got to appeal to a wider audience. And
which would you say would carry more? Because when they conflict, which would you say carry more canon weight?
It's up to you.
Unfortunately, I think the TV show would.
A lot of people think that because George is involved much more directly with the TV show, that's the TV show. But I say you really should just decide on your own mind.
Absolutely. Sure. If we took everybody in here, we'd all have our own story. We'd all go a different way.
And why not?
So we'd all take it a different direction. So, I mean, that's the key. And like I said, I think the cartoon series, just in my opinion, is bringing a whole new breed from our kids into it. And if that's what he's doing a good job at it, in my opinion. So, just I had a young man over here first, and then I got one in the back next.
In the Star Wars, the Clone saw Rada the Hutt, Jabba's son. Is that the last time you're ever going to see him? Or,
I don't know.
I think that they're purposely setting up several characters, because one thing I think that George is very, very good at is winding us up. He knows the things that are going to pique our curiosity, stick in our craw, that sort of thing, and he's given us Ahsoka that we're going to wonder about for years. Where's Ahsoka?
Hey, what happened to Ahsoka?
What happened to Rada? I can't ever get the kid's name right. And there's a couple other characters like that are in the original. Jar Jar, in the prequels, not in the original. So there's a lot of speculation. I think that's done purposely to keep us interested. We might focus on a particular character.
Do you think George does pre-planning?
I think he does very much.
Like he certainly didn't know that Luke and Leia were brother and sister in 1977.
Well, I'll tell you this about
Or Darth Vader was Luke's father. I can pretty much guarantee you that. I mean, he might have known that. But
here's my only piece of insider Star Wars information I ever got is probably it was about 1994. I was in San Francisco talking to a guy who was good friends with Marsha Lucas, and he was telling me, well, she was over at the house and she was complaining about how, George was doing this, and she told him, well, he's planning on doing 3 more Star Wars movies, and he's crazy because he's going to write and direct all of them. So that was in 1994. So 6 years later, and even before that, he must have been thinking about it. She said he got out his old notebook and he's writing the scripts himself, and he's going to direct it. And I thought, that's a bad idea.
I have to say that wasn't really inside information because I was looking back. Well, I was looking back at like an old issue of the Lucasfilm Fan Club magazine, and I believe I was looking at a 1993 issue. Was the earliest one that I could find. Oh. And it said that in terms of writing the Zahn novels that were coming, I think the first 2 were already out at the point that this article was saying the reason they sort of authorized that and going to expanded universe was because George is going to make the sort of opening up that part of the universe after Return of the Jedi, because George didn't really have any story after Return of the Jedi that he wanted to tell. He was going to make more movies. They were going to be, the earlier before.
All right, moving on. We got a young gentleman in the back of the room. Yes, sir.
Blue virus is contagious. How did the clones survive that long with their helmets off?
Could you repeat that? Sorry.
It was about the virus.
How did they survive so
with their helmets on. With their helmets.
Very good genetics.
If it's so contagious, how did they last so long with the helmets?
Yeah,
it's not very often that I don't have an answer.
I would assume that clones are.
You left these guys
speechless. That's quite the accomplishment.
I can bowl my way through these. That's my specialty on the show. The clones are probably bred for their genetics.
Resistant,
yeah, and they've probably been tweaked, and they're probably a little more resistant than, say, a normal person. I would hope so anyway. If you're going to buy an expensive elite army.
Read that. Now that you say that, I think that I had recently read that the clones were. I mean, they were definitely tweaked to be more servile and all that, but I think they were also tweaked genetically to be more resistant to injury and disease. And I'm.
Or at least
all right. Okay. Yes, sir. Back here. Then I'll back. Yes, sir. You. And then we'll go to the back.
Hey, was there ever any explanation of why they did 2 versions of rookies?
Why they took out the word hell, or what else? I don't know if they ever explained that. I think.
Maybe it's too obvious. You saw the first one; it's too obvious in the second. I don't know why.
I need to watch. I actually have a recorded copy of the first that should have hell in it, but I haven't ever gone back and tried to compare.
They changed it. They took hell out, and they did 2 versions of it.
I know that the hell was taken out, I believe, twice, wasn't it? But I haven't gone back there to look.
Okay. Back of the room, yes, sir.
So, in season 2, there was one rumor on the internet that Mark Hamill was doing your voice. Is that true?
I hope so.
So too. I could totally see it. I mean, that's the main thing he's done since Luke Skywalker is voice acting, and
he's very good at
it.
He's
excellent at it. And everybody here's seen Return of the Joker, Batman Beyond, Return of the Joker. Yeah. Phenomenal job by him. And
well, even in the new Arkham Asylum Batman game, he does.
Oh, is he back as the Joker?
Yeah.
Oh, excellent.
What I think he's so good. I've seen his name in the credits of Metalocalypse show. I can't tell which character. I've been watching the show trying to figure out who's Mark Hamill, and I cannot pick out his voice. So that's a testament to his voice acting.
2 questions. 1, do you think we'll ever get to see KD-1, the shipyard that builds the Star Destroyers? And the second question, the only thing I kind of upset with George Lucas was in Star Wars 3, when Padme dies with babies, and then in Return of the Jedi, Luke is talking to Leia about his mother.
That doesn't have anything to do with the Clone Wars.
No, I know. It's just that was something.
Yes, George is very bad at consistency.
The thing is, the Leia thing, that's a really easy explanation, because it's not like at that time she thinks that Vader's her father, or that she was adopted.
Well, I think the way Luke asked the question is that your real mother, not the mother that she's had. I think that he's implying that she knows that she's adopted in that question.
If I said, do you remember your mother, your real mother? You'd be like, yeah, I remember my real mother. I mean, why wouldn't I?
It's like, why would you? I would say, what do you mean real mother?
Yes.
I would think would be my thing if I didn't. I mean, why would you say real mother? Your mother, real mother. If I knew who I know my mother is. If you're saying that's not, I mean,
we're going to move on. Here we go. Yes, ma'am, right here.
I just wanted to add, Mark Hamill plays one of the senators on the law.
Oh, okay.
Sorry.
I've wanted to know for a long time. Thank you.
Yes, sir, in the back.
The question has been bugging me for a long time. In the movie, Anakin and Ahsoka steal that freighter and crash it on Tatooine, and then you see it later in another episode.
I've got a better question for you. Why do they keep using a stupid tramp freighter to get around the galaxy? I hate that.
And
shit.
why do they always end up on Tatooine? He and I are just, there's
this is a running gag in our show.
There
have been 7 movies, 6 of which they've been on Tatooine.
It's the Force. It's fate. You know how it is.
I guess, yeah.
Yes, ma'am. Right here.
I just want to say how I am so amazed about how they slowly introduce a lot of social concepts in this show.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, like the question of humanity with the Clone Wars, the episode where the 2 clone troopers find the little girl on Ryloth. That's a mirror image of what's going on in Darfur right now, and it's just slowly introducing children to these great global issues. And I just want to say I find that so amazing. And that's one reason why I love watching the show.
I know that there's a lot of criticism about the show. I know there's a lot of continuity issues. Believe me, I'm Mr. He can attest to this. I'm Mr. Continuity. The thing going on with Superman, if anybody reads Superman right now, what's going on with that is driving
sleepover
nuts.
Stuff like that.
However, it's things like this. You gotta, and I'm not trying to be a hypocrite because I'm that guy, right? But you've got to kind of see past that to see what they're trying to do with the show, because they're trying to entertain in 22 minutes, but they're also trying to do little things like that. I love that episode.
Oh, yes.
The other episode I love, although it's not the most entertaining episode, I like the seeds it planted, is the one with the traitorous clone, because you called him evil, which I find very weird because I took it completely opposite. I feel for that guy. These guys are slaves.
They are.
They have been bred to serve one purpose, to die for the Republic, and they're not expected to have lives or rights or anything. I find that as the good guy's side, whoa, what?
Yeah.
I mean, Anakin was a slave. You would think him, of all people, would go, this ain't right somehow. I think that's going to come to a head later on, and I can't wait for it.
I have a question. Before Episode 2 came out, or you knew about Episode 2, who thought the Clone Wars had the clones on the side of the Republic? Did anybody really?
No, I didn't either. That really should be called the Droid Wars, I think.
Yeah. Yes, sir. Star Trek man.
I think like we see now the clones it's later on. Both captions in the beginning here, but it's are really maniacal, crazy man. So, in my mind, I don't really see a good versus bad.
Right.
One guy using both sides.
At that point in the timeline, Palpatine's got his fingers in all different sides, and everything's and you're sort of seeing the Jedi on their decline, where they're not at the peak of where they used to be.
I just have one other thing just to go off the sort of social commentary, which I really like. Like overall, the series I'm not a big fan of, but
I really like to sit into little minutes into, like some commentary. Like the one, which is my favorite episode of at least the series, is the George Kristyk guest appearance, where the little furry guys are like little
pacifist drives.
I didn't really see that. And it's very huge. It's like, oh, you're always afraid to die. Like, the little furry people are like, well, that's great.
I would just say, if you haven't read it, read the novelization of Revenge of the Sith, and you will see that Emperor Palpatine was a total SOB, and the plotting and planning to get Anakin, he totally manipulated and steered that guy, and that does not come across in the filmed version, but the book is speaking right to what you were talking about.
Sure, right here in the green.
Yeah, I was like talking. You guys talking about the clones, like how they go off on their own. Like you read the Republic Commando novels.
I'm reading Order 66.
Yeah, those are awesome. That's like what they all go about, like how one of them wants to be with like a girl or something like that. And how it's not. But I heard this theory. Someone told me that what was that Palpatine learned from Plagueis how to create life. And I'm talking about the Shmi Skywalker. What do you think about that? I just want to get somebody's thought about that.
They based that on, there was a point in the screenplay, according to the making of Revenge of the Sith book, that George was considering stating that Palpatine was particularly involved in the creation of Anakin Skywalker.
Right, yeah, I've heard that speculation.
But he decided to abandon that because he thought it was just too raw. And the expanded universe picked up on it in different incarnations.
My take on that is that's just a little too much planning. I like that he planned this whole vast scheme that all played out and it all worked, and you can look at it and examine it and go, wow, this guy was just a master manipulator. But that's that's just over.
I don't think it fits, because why would Palpatine create the chosen one who's going to destroy him eventually?
His balance meant the wrong thing. It meant two Sith and 2 Jedi. Mm-hmm. That was pretty balanced, if you ask me, right? That's the one Sith
that's right, like 9 essential vitamins and iron. So.
Well,
yes, sir.
Ready? I was going to say, speaking of Hard Contact and the other ones, in the expanded novels with the clone troopers, especially the deviant clone troopers, you want to call them deviant ones, they take the Mando culture, and the Mandalorians who trained them gave them that to give them some identity, because the Republic considered them slaves. The Mandalorians realized that and tried to give them the Mando identity, give them the Mando culture, the words, give them a language, give them... do you think they're going to play that up at all in the clone troops? Because I
know they are in the trailer I saw at Disney. The Mandalorians walk into the room.
I want to
3
see
or 4 or 5. It's like a bunch of them
see.
walk into the room, and it was like the holy cow
so it's
moment
of
the episode. It was mind blowing, and
there are going to be
Mandalorians nuts. So.
There aren't going to be Mandalorians, but the question is that are we going to see Mandalorians on the side of the Republic?
Well,
and I think that so far. I don't think that's going to happen. I think that. Does anybody know what actually is sort of going to happen that's made Karen Travis quit?
She quit?
What? She quit writing.
What you're going to see in the Clone Wars is you're going to see George's version of Mandalorians. You're not going to see Karen Travis's and what's been written version of Mandalorians. So it's actually going to be a completely different take. There's going to be some elements of what we know of as Mandalorians, but it's going to be very minor elements. The actual chief group of Mandalorians is called the New Mandalorians, which is actually a pacifist group of Mandalorians. I had to pause there for a minute to get it out of my mouth. But you'll see some two smaller factions of Mandalorians, or probably the chief one. If you actually stop the promo they put at SDCC and probably Disney, you will see a Death Watch sign.
You're talking about San Diego?
Yeah.
That is the same one. If anybody's seen the San Diego trailer, that's the trailer I saw.
No, they're different.
They are different?
There's a lot of stuff in similar, but there were differences.
Did they edit some stuff? Because I audio recorded it, but I did not video record it. But I thought they would. I'm not arguing. I'm just asking.
No, I'm 100% sure there were some differences, but there's a lot in common.
All right, we're going to go back here. The man in blue has been waiting on for a while, and we'll go to the man in white. So.
Well, there was a question. Sidious uses Dooku and Grievous for his general. What I was thinking was does he let them know, or are they knowledgeable that basically Sidious is in control of both the clones? And
Grievous definitely isn't, and I'm not really sure about Dooku. I wondered about that myself.
In the novelization he did know, which I had major problems with. But I have some other issues with that novelization as well. But I was shocked to find that out in the novelization.
I wouldn't think.
Revenge of the Sith that Dooku did know that Palpatine was Darth Sidious.
But of course, it's not clear if he knows that Revenge of the Sith, when did he actually find out? So,
it just seems like they're going through a lot of hard work for nothing. It's an interesting dynamic. But,
right. The question would be: what does Dooku think he's going to get out of it? Which is explored in the novels and the books. That he thinks there's going to be a sort of big Sith army and stuff. But that's really not. That's not really. Nothing's really come out. It's very unclear what the Separatists are after. Is my biggest issue. One of the issues I have, because at Disney, before the trailer for the season 2, Ahsoka came out and talked about these are the Separatists. They're the bad guys, and they want to take over the galaxy. And I'm like, I just thought they wanted free trade. When did they start trying to take over the galaxy and have all these weapons of mass destruction and all this stuff? Palpatine doesn't want the Republic wiped out. Why is he having the whole galaxy wiped out? Why is he having them do that?
See, Dooku knowing would explain his sudden outrage right at the very end when Palpatine orders Anakin to kill him. Dooku is surprised, and you would think that Dooku would think, "Wait a minute. I thought we were supposed to bring him with us and start this new Sith Empire."
There's actually a line in the comic adaptation that's probably from the novelization and maybe the script that they gave him at some time, where Dooku looks at the Emperor and says, "Well, what? This isn't what you said was going to happen, or why are you doing this?"
I think he knew, but I didn't think he understood the whole plan.
They also say repeatedly in the animated series concerning Dooku and Asajj's ventures, that Asajj was never revealed exactly that she's studying to be a Sith under Dooku.
No, she was denied by him in one of the novels, but then there's another novel and I think even in the show, he has referred to her as his apprentice.
Yeah.
So there is an inconsistency.
But he said also that he can't reveal that fact to Sidious, or he'll kill both of them.
Right.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Well, I actually want to agree with what you said a few minutes ago, that at the end of 3, the Force is balanced because there are two Jedi. That's fantastic dramatic irony. However, George Lucas himself has said in interviews flatly that Vader fulfills the prophecy and balances the Force when he kills the Emperor at the end of Return of the Jedi, which doesn't make sense to me. But that's what he says.
I think that the Force is balanced at that point because Luke, although he is a Jedi and conceivably the sole remaining Jedi, he's a clean slate. I mean, he really hasn't gone through like the academy and all this stuff. I mean, which I know is a nitpick for a lot of people. Is like, we see this academy in the prequels, but then Luke spends 20 minutes on Dagobah and Empire, and how does he get Jedi out of that? I think that's calculated. I think that he's supposed to be.
I've always had the theory that Luke is almost more of a pure Jedi.
Right.
I think when you see the prequel trilogy, you're seeing the Jedi when they've gotten to a point of almost bureaucracy and where they're almost relying more on science than metaphysics, and that's sort of their downfall.
Corrupt.
Is they're corrupt and they just as the Dooku says it, or not Dooku, but the Emperor says it.
I think people are placing too much emphasis on people that wield the Force, being the Jedi and the Sith, and the Force itself.
Right.
What the prophecy says is balance the Force. Now, the Sith disrupt the living Force.
Right.
And so to bring it into balance, the Chosen One came into the galaxy to bring balance to the Force, to bring balance to the Jedi, or bring balance to the Sith. That's the argument that has to be understood.
Right.
The wielders of the Force aren't the Force itself. It's everything that has life in the galaxy is the Force. A representative of the Force.
The tree and the rock.
And an interesting thing is, I notice on here it says this Cad Bane, his gear is specifically designed to counteract the Force, which that's a strange thing. That there's a sort of in the original trilogy, the Force was metaphysics. It was it had its resonance in all sorts of religions beyond the physical, and Episode 1 just started the whole midichlorians and the Force being a physical thing that could be physically altered rather than something done mentally.
Well, you have creatures that have like resistance of the Tausen scale.
Right.
And some of the expanded universe allows you to mask yourself. So you
Right.
theory could use living creatures like the Ismari, however you pronounce it, the Voinskers and the Tausen, and all of these, incorporate them in technology to give you an advantage against Cortus, Frick, and what's the other one now? Man, we've got Bessic, Cortus, and Frick. As the alloys that can deflect lightsabers and just, so you can, in theory, use nature, combine it with technology to create a resistance, but you're not going to be able to stop the Jedi. Ultimately, the Force can crush you.
You mentioned, Cad Bane. How many in here like Cad Bane? Awesome. What do the kids think? Because
my kids love Cad.
I have a 5-year-old. I have a 5-year-old. I see the Clone Wars through my son's eyes now. And yesterday in the the Star Wars costume contest, there's Cad Bane. I'm like a 5-year-old. I'm like, oh, there's Cad Bane. Mr. Cad Bane, can I have my picture maybe?
Yes, sir.
Well, back on the balance thing, Yoda at the end of the novelization, it was kind of touched on in the movie, but in the novelization, he realizes that he was almost the pinnacle of that just stagnant corruption of the Jedi. And when Qui-Gon appears to him, Yoda didn't know the disappearing come back as a Force spirit trick, and he learns it from Qui-Gon.
Right.
And he's all like, wow, teach me. And if you notice in 5 and 6, Yoda approaches Luke nothing like he approaches any other student in the prequel movies. In his teaching style is totally different.
Because he had fallen by that point. He'd had a great fall, and with that kind of thing comes humility.
Yeah.
And he realized, I think he had 20 years basically to look and re-examine what happened. I went from living in this cool, mushroom building to now I'm living in the swamp, and how did I get here?
Well, he's also just teaching one person instead of a whole classroom, so he could really focus on Luke's psyche and work it in that direction.
But in Episode 3, I think the only true statement that Palpatine makes, like the only full, truthful statement he makes is in the end, when he talks to Yoda, he says, "Your arrogance blinds you." I think it's the only time he's not really lying. I think he's dead on honest to Yoda. It's like, you were so arrogant, it's easy to undermine the entire. Because that was what the Clone Wars was just, we're going to have these instituted conflicts, so I'm going to take your numbers from tens of thousands to 100, and then I'm going to wipe you out like it's a joke. That was it. That was the entire reason.
Hello, I'm right here in front of you.
Right. You voted for me.
It was a joke. It was a joke. By the end of Episode 3, he was laughing, happy. Yeah, he'd waited all those years for that particular moment when he could chuck those things at Yoda. He was having a riot.
Yes, sir, in the white.
Let me just add to what he said, because I totally agree with that. Yoda's had 800 years of making this stagnant Jedi that made that point of novelization. So, at the same time, the Force is just totally out of whack now because the bad side is just gaining an immense amount of power secretly, and the good side is totally stagnant, taking babies away from families, total lack of emotion, and so it's just out of whack on a lot of levels. So yeah, Anakin could be restoring balance by number one. Ultimately, he destroys Palpatine, but even before that, kind of knocks Yoda off his pedestal. He has to start over, rethink things, and it's, oh shoot, Obi-Wan, we can't train these kids. We've got to have them have families first.
That's a good point. Yes, sir.
You were talking about the clone troopers developing their own personalities and potentially going rogue, but then you also have Yoda instilling personality into these clones.
He was encouraging them. Yes, that's a good point.
I found that odd that Yoda was teaching these clones to have an individual function
when they're cannon fodder.
Yeah.
At the same time, yeah.
Yeah. It's kind of like, please step in front of me.
Yes, sir.
To add on to that, I think that's one of the most frustrating things about all the different series and novels and books and cartoons and stuff. It's kind of the inconsistency of the characters. I don't think Yoda would have done that at that time. And so that's just one of the frustrating things that has really come to light for me lately.
Yes, sir. Star Trek.
I just had to tack on to the New Jedi versus Jedi. We got from like a philosophy background. You got the new Jedi is almost like a Socratic one, where it's inward looking and really always questioning, really deep going. Like look to really know thyself Jedi. Where the old Jedi Order is almost like the soapist one. It's like, hey, we're right. No questions allowed. Okay, that's it. Everything's good. Pay attention. Do your homework.
They're following a script. They have a set structure, whereas Luke is very much fly by the seat of your pants and just learn it on the fly.
I'm going to take a couple more comments here, and then I'm going to introduce somebody here that's kind of important that I would like to meet, because I'm sure he's going to probably dislike me here in a minute, but I'm going to put him on the spot. So, yes, sir.
To touch on what he said, Luke did create this brand new order that has all these different beliefs and stuff. Recreated the Jedi Code and everything like that. But you can tell that he still had, he completely thought that he was right in this, because even after changing things and allowing people to marry, he obviously thought that marriage and love didn't lead to the dark side, because he gave a speech to his son that a Jedi must walk absolutely on the path of the light and they can't compromise. Doing so is path to the dark side. But yet, that's what he does, or that's what he did when he created the new Jedi Order, completely compromised rules that just were part of the old order.
You were in the religion of Star Wars.
Yeah. Yes, ma'am. You were next.
Shit, what was I about to say? I think a lot of it also, when it comes to balancing the Force between the old Jedi and the new Jedi, I think before Yoda rethought his thoughts, I think everyone thought it was supposed to be a physical balance of numbers.
Yeah.
And that's why when Luke comes along, it's more about the balance within yourself, because when him and Anakin both perform at their best, it's when they're using just a little bit of the dark side and a little bit of the light side, and that's when they're at their best. And I think that's why Luke is so much more, what's the word I'm looking for? Significant, I guess? In the future.
Pivotal.
And his descendant in the trade paperbacks, uses the dark side to heal, and it's the Skywalker line.
Legacy.
Yeah, the legacy. The Skywalker line all the way down.
Just show of hands. How is that? You guys like that? I've got a friend that's really trying to get me into that.
The Skywalker line uses the dark side all the way along.
We may get into that on the show.
Powers, just like you said.
Well, let me do this real quick before and like I said, he may run out of the building. I'm going to hopefully somebody block the door. But we have one of the co-writers, I guess, for the Clone Wars in the room, and he wanted to hear what everybody's opinion of it was before we actually let him know that y'all are in the room, because we don't usually talk about somebody to their face, so it's kind of neat to actually to hear anything that y'all had to say that was bad. But George Kristyk, if you don't mind, I was going to let you come up here and take over for a little bit. I'm going to run.
Right on. Thanks for having me, guys. It's just great to hear that everybody cares so much to ask these questions and either get angry or get passionate about it. So thank you. And just to let you guys know, I'm as big a fan as you guys are, and I'm sure you probably heard that about the crew. We're all fans, So when we were given this opportunity, we kind of just lost our minds and nerded out. So the same questions you guys have, we went through as well, because we're all super nerds. And I remember watching the first film in the theater with my parents and going, Clone Wars, I bet that's awesome. I can't wait to see that. And then getting the chance to write some of those stories is awesome.
So speaking my language right
So yeah.
Well, I think there's talking about the inconsistencies and lining everything up, but when it comes down to the pragmatic writing a good story and trying to make it best as you can, when it really comes down to it, it doesn't feel like Star Wars. And I definitely think that the Clone Wars show, it's like life. You're not going to have a wonderful life all the time, but at least once in every show there's one of those Star Wars moments, whether it's a visual moment or a line of dialogue between two people or an interaction, that you look at. I think one visual one that I can remember is there were the sort of flying whale creatures that were flying through this beautiful orange cloud, and it looked like a Hildebrandt painting come to life, and they come out of the cloud and there's these giant things flying, and when I see that on TV, it brings me right back to being 11 years old again, and it looks, it feels, it fits, and
that's
what I look for. That's what I look for in my star. I don't need it to be. I don't need that injection all the way through the movie. But if I get one or two little hits of it every once in a while, that's enough for me. That's the good stuff.
Right on.
And it's showing up in the Clone Wars all the time and
awesome.
Consistently.
And it's it's our first season, so there's growing pains and we make mistakes, and I'm sure you guys are aware of those. But it's just going to get better. As with any TV show, you figure things out. You get a good crew together. You figure out what designs work, what storylines work, and you go from there. Yeah. Any questions that I probably can't answer?
The biggest controversy is what is canon and what isn't canon. So how do you guys handle that?
That's a great question. When we were brought on early, George told the team, what you guys write is canon. Don't worry about EU. And if I approve what you guys have written, that's canon. Because we had a couple months when we were reading all the comics and the books and the video games, and we're like, oh my God, it's too much. It's too much. How can you tell a good story, as you were saying? Mm-hmm. So he cut right through it, and he said to us, I will let you know what Star Wars is and what it isn't. And sometimes, we were way off, and he'd say, that's not Star Wars. You can't do that. And we wouldn't know, because again, everyone has their own idea of what Star Wars is, but there's only one guy who really knows what it is.
Right.
Are you going to take any of the comments that you've heard from us and take them back and be like, hey guys, this is what the fans think along episodes?
Well, what's funny is that all of the conversation you guys have had, and some of the arguments I've heard, we've already had those. We had those years and years ago. So we're with you, But again, we're open to have fathers and sons and families sitting down.
Oh, yeah,
and there
I
you
got
go.
in the last year because of Clone Wars.
Right on. And we want to have that kind of communication on a story level with different demographics. So it isn't your father's Star Wars, but hopefully your father can enjoy it as well.
If you know who your father is.
Yeah. Right there.
I know that last year Dave was pushing to have Quinlan Voss in season 1. I'm wondering if you guys have any more plans this season to bring in more expanded universe characters, such as like was being discussed, characters from Jude Watson's books, or just anyone else from the expanded universe.
Gotcha.
Please give us a bench.
That's a perfect example of a question I can't answer right now.
Can't or won't?
Yeah, no, I'm sure the 501st is around the corner.
I was going to say, has Lucas got microphones in here? I think a lot of people forget that they think of George Lucas as the director of Star Wars, but he's an independent filmmaker.
Yeah.
He came out of the same school as Coppola and Scorsese, and they were all peers. It was funny when we were last night, turned on the TV, and there was the end of American Graffiti, a very experimental film, THX 1138, very experimental film, and I think he still has that mindset. I think he's more, maybe, I don't want to say hippie, but in that time period, experimental mindset, and I think he's got this pop phenomena, and with it, especially when you have kids, and when he has kids, you feel a responsibility to sort of maybe not go crazy with it, but to keep it sort of in line and maybe a little more towards the pop culture. But I think somewhere in there is a rogue independent filmmaker. I mean, he is the ultimate independent filmmaker. He comes up with his own money and makes the movies he wants the way he wants to do them, and he gets it done. And I really admire him for that, and I always try to remember that he's not like a Michael Bay, or he's not a blockbuster. I make blockbuster movies. He's really wants to innovate, and I wish he would sort of go back sometime to a more low budget, odd film sometime, just to see how that would. I thought Episode 1 was a very innovatively, although awkwardly edited and put together movie. It had a very strange, it had a flow and a way of playing out that was different than, and sort of 2 and 3 did at the same time, than different than a lot of other movies, especially big budget action movies, and I appreciate that.
So, do we have a question from the panel?
All right. So my question was about some of the things that we did discuss that you could maybe answer in terms of sort of like the episode arcs, or what in-universe characters that we might see, like like a Ki-Adi-Mundi or some of the other members of the Jedi Council that we haven't seen, like Shakti, or people that do exist, that for sure exist in our canon, may show up or not.
Again, if we're dipping into second season, I really can't speak on those matters. But if you've seen these characters, if you're familiar with them, and especially if we mention them or you saw a shot of them in first season, it's a good bet that you'll see them in second season.
George, real quick. When you sit down to start a story, to begin the writing process, how long does it take you to do it? What do you?
It's well for us the way the process works is we get an idea from George or from the director or the head writer, and then we beat it out. Usually they give us 1 page, like, okay, this is what's going to happen. Storm over Ryloth. They're going to have a space battle. Okay, and then you go through the process, and you just keep building. You go from treatment to outline to script to first draft, second draft, and usually the writing process is about 3 months maximum, and then it goes into animation. And usually the turnaround is from script to screen, and animation is about 9 months. But because this is CG, it takes a lot longer. That's traditional 2D. So, and then also the way Lucas likes to work is he does a lot of writing in the editing room, and then we reanimate stuff sometimes. Sometimes we redo entire acts. So the writing kind of continues on. But this is a very unique case.
Okay, last 2 questions. The gentleman in the black, and then over here. Right here, you buddy. You.
I'm just curious how you make the Clone Wars fit, just the time frame that we're working with. If adding events actually makes sense with the actual time frame that we're on.
Gotcha. Do you mean as in the chronology of the universe and what's happening?
If there's just a wide enough time frame to include all these things, then it actually makes sense to include all these things in episode 1 and 2.
Yeah, I think that may be going to that. What is it? Someone said it earlier, very poetically. Yeah, there it is. Yeah, the willing suspension of disbelief, where you go, I'm on this ride. I kind of know that logic has to be set aside for certain things, and I think that's a perfect example of
I will set it aside so there don't have to be 3 episodes of Clone Wars and that's it.
And that's it.
We're running out of time. Sorry, no more story. I'll take the stories and forget about the chronology syncing up. That's why MASH lasted longer than the war in Korea.
It's like 2.5 times longer than the actual war. Yeah.
Last question.
As a writer, is it going to the dark side if you called up, say, Robot Chicken and said, I want to get in right now?
Oh, well, actually, I know those guys, so it's not, So I'm already dark side, So,
Any last comments from the panelists? I don't know if you guys want to finish off with anything.
I'd just like to ask one quick question of you.
Sure.
Do you have any anything to do or any inside anything to Star Tours 2.0?
No, I do not. But I do think that, as with everything that's done at Lucasfilm, people are talking to other people, so there's an awareness. Everybody knows what's happening with the other team.
Because I really want to see your work in particular incorporated into that experience. I think that would be awesome.
Cool. Thanks, guys.
Come back at 10 o'clock tonight, and Scott and I will be on the adult themes. Star Wars. Bring your smoking jackets.
Oh, thank you.